Ready?
3, 2.
All right. Just to be fair and honesty in videos, nothing ever works as planned. This this heat shrink here, it can fit over that connector, but I would really recommend that you don't do it. Make sure you put it on first thing on your cable, and then this heat shrink boot is only meant to go up to the turn barrel. It is not meant to go past or into the turn barrel in any shape, form, or fashion. This is just sealing that jam nut to the body of the connector. There's a couple of different ways to do this. Heat gun works very well. That's typically what you use. However, if you're out in the field, you don't necessarily have the capability of doing that. Next thing you can do is a torch. You can get these from a lot of different places. It's like anything else, you just have to be careful with it. You don't want it to leave it on too long, else otherwise you're going to burn the heat shrink. You're just trying to get it warmed up so that it seals around the body of the connector. It's always a good idea just to keep everything moving. That way it doesn't get overly heated up. And I'm going to form this around the body of the connector first thing. You can usually tell if you've heated it up too much. One, it'll start burning, but more to the point is it'll start turning an ashy color, and then you know you need to move on to somewhere else. Now, standing out in a ladder and trying to do this is a whole nother story. You got to deal with wind and a few other things, but it's always best to work from one end and work it out. It's pushing all the air out at the same time when you do things like that, or do it that way. And you can actually see the indentations of the jam nut as well as the indentation of the body of the connector. And that's it. Oh, yeah, safety is important. Don't leave your torch going. All right. One of the things that's been discussed too is the taping of this connector. When this gets installed and you get it spun on to whether it's your surge suppression device, or whether it's to the radio, the UVRI, or more importantly to the antenna itself, it's important after you screw this on is that you tape it up properly. The first thing that needs to happen is whichever way this goes to tighten up, which I guess is counterclockwise to tighten up onto the antenna, that is the direction that your tape needs to go. And what you're going to do is you're going to tape that all the way up, just one layer of tape, and go onto the body of the, let's just, in this case, we'll say the antenna. And then that's it. Just one quick pass with that electrical tape. The next thing we have is this tape here, which is a rubberized tape. You don't need to have a lot of it. This tape, as well as the electrical tape, only works when you pull it tight. If you don't pull it tight, it's not going to do the job. It's not going to seal up properly. So I've got some other things on here that I should have removed. I apologize. The cloth backing on this was not removed. Like I said, anyways, so it needs to be on tight, it needs to be stretched. You're going to stretch that over the body of this connector and a little bit and onto the other connector. Now, I had folded over my tape at the beginning so that it'd be easy to peel off, but now it's becoming kind of a pain in the butt. So, all right. So this should have had more of the rubber tape on. It should actually go from the base up. I only cut a small piece just to show you. And then last but not least, you got your electrical tape again. So it's tape, rubber tape, and then electrical tape. The electrical tape, just like the rubber tape, doesn't really work unless you pull it tight. You got to pull it tight, and it's going to create a really good seal all the way around your connector. Now, we have heard comments about the tape. Sometimes you've seen this when you're out in the field after it's been out there a while and the sun has gotten to it sometimes, and if it wasn't pulled tight and cut or snapped off cleanly, you'll start getting what we call a flag or a little tail. A piece of this will start pulling back and it'll just sit there and flop in the wind. Now, a way to prevent that is, when you get done, is just taking some of this liquid tape. Do not get this on the antenna. Do not get this anywhere but on the tape itself. This has just got a brush-on applicator to it. It's really gummy, but you just put a little bit on your connector or on your tape, and that will glue that down and it will not come off again. Nice part about it is, if you have to remove this, remember that your heat shrink goes all the way up to the barrel. So if you have to remove this tape, start at the base of the barrel and then cut up. It'll peel right back nice and cleanly so you can get in there, but do not cut the heat shrink below it. So you can get a knife at this point and slice backwards, but again, just cut the electrical tape, do not cut the heat shrink. One thing we've kind of jumped ahead on as far as the taping goes, you need to check this out. You need to make sure that your cable, that your connector has been made properly. Again, you won't even be getting to the point where you would have to cut this back unless this is not working properly. So one thing you should always do, you should be looking in there at that dielectric, that white dielectric, making sure there aren't any little wires that might be touching the center conductor. Next thing, taking a multimeter, you should be checking for a short between the pin and the outside metal of the barrel or the outside of the dielectric. That should be shorted. Go to the other end, take a paper clip and short the other end of the cable, short the pin to the jacket, to the shielding, and this should now read a short. That will tell you that both sides, both the shield side is connected properly as well as the center conductor, and that the two are completely isolated. Sometimes you'll go up here, if you don't have the other end terminated, you'll go up here and you'll check to see if these two are shorted, and you'll find that it is shorted. Go look at the other end, because on the other end of the cable you could have a wire that's coming across and shorting that out. So you need to make sure that that's clear. But a continuity check on your cable before you do all the taping business is going to save you a lot of time, tell you if there's a problem here. So that's very important. Anyways, we kind of went through a lot of this. The big thing is here is reading the instructions. You have three different types of connectors here. You have a male type, straight male. We have a straight female pin or connector, which should be very similar to this, and then you have a 90-degree connector. So it's very important that you read the instructions and cut it to the length that it identifies. Cutting it short, as I stated earlier in the other video, will make a difference. It will not allow your jacket to properly seat in there, plus your pin might not go all the way to the end. Cutting it too long or having the dielectric too long will create a situation where your jam nut gets sucked into it, and you will no longer have a weather tight seal, and you might actually be able to see the shielding from the back side of this jam nut. So it's very important that you just cut it to the length here. Now I haven't done a connector and soldered it in a few years. We did do a couple of connectors yesterday, but we did not solder it. And I forgot some very simple things about soldering irons. One is you got to have it clean. You got to keep the end clean. If your soldering iron tip is dark at all, more than likely you're not going to have a good connection as far as that heat transference onto the pin, and you're going to be sitting there fighting it. And that's what happened the first time I did this morning. The second time we went back in, cleaned up the end, made sure we had a nice flat end for the connector pin to sit on, and things went a lot smoother. So it's amazing what a clean end of your soldering iron can make a significant difference. So with that being said, I think that's about it. So everybody's going to find a little bit different way to do things. The instructions are a little bit cryptic, but the big takeaway here is cut it the length that it's supposed to be, according to the drawing. All right, thank you.